Welcome back to the Knick-Knack Review. Today we're looking at the Amazon Prime original TV series, Invincible. And this is the grand finale. Oh boy, let's dive in. Oh man, this one was such a good episode. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it starts right where the last one left off, much like the other episodes have done. But this one was just like the last one left on a cliffhanger of like, oh gosh, Mark and his dad are about to like, I don't know, either fight or something. And that's basically what happens. They Mark just witnessed his dad kill Immortal, and they're hovering over his body in pieces. And he just witnessed him do that, and he's just like in awe, like what's going on. And they barely say anything before the fists start flying, and Mark and his dad actually get into a fight, and is absolutely insane. And I knew that would happen. I'm not a reader of the comic book itself, but I'd heard that they eventually fight. I just didn't know it actually happened in this season. And the fists start flying, and oh my gosh, it's painful because you can see Mark literally is like hitting his dad and is saying like, who's controlling you? Who's doing this? Let go of my dad. He's really convinced that his dad is being controlled, and that is just not the case. And we all know the truth, but it really kind of like, it hurt me because it's like he's really, really hoping that his dad is being controlled. He just couldn't believe what he witnessed. And he's just like beating his dad. And then of course his dad, being Omni-Man is just, he's like, I don't care. I'm a Viltrumite. You are nothing to me, basically. And they get into such a fight. Like, I thought Omni-Man and the Immortal had a great fight. It really was. It was kind of a Man of Steel-esque fight. Whew, man, this fight was... It started in that field, it went to the city, and it went to the suburbs. It went all over the place, and it was a great fight. It almost lasted the entire episode. And when Mark hits his dad, that first hit was just like, you could see the anger in him, and just wham, he just smacks his dad, and yeah, it was insane. And this is actually where you learn the true origin of Omni-Man, and he tells Mark everything like about his race and what they were a utopia, but like what their true intentions were. And he kind of, he was very much of a jerk. He's kind of been a jerk this whole series, but like he really like put the crown on today. I was just like, man, like so he told him more about his true origin and his intentions were when he came to Earth and what the rest of his race does. And it was just like, man, like, yeah, they come from the utopia thing, but they end up ruling the entire world or the entire galaxy. And he's like, it's pretty much what I predicted, it's like, hey, Mark, look, you're either with me or against me type of thing. And when Mark didn't want to have, he's like, no, I'm a superhero. You're a superhero. You've saved people. You've done all these great things. And now you're telling me all this. Omni-Man is just like, you are nothing to me. And they get into that fight that I just mentioned, and it lasts like the whole episode, and it's insane. He even calls his mom, Mark's mom, Omni-Man calls her his pet. Oh my gosh, that's when Mark loses it, and that's when oh my god. There's not much more to say about this fight, man. This it's one of those you gotta see it things. The animation is always great, it's always spot on. The voice acting just makes it that much better. It's just a very intense episode from the beginning to the end. Once that battle starts, Omni-Man he realizes that he's ousted as a bad guy, and he's just like, oh, screw it. And he starts killing people, left and right. He doesn't even care. At one point, they land on the ground, and Invincible went to save this guy, and he's like, oh, he said something, and then all of a sudden, Omni-Man just grabs the guy by his head and just squeezes him, and bam, and Mark's like, no, why'd you do that? You didn't have to do that. And he's like, he was just, I can only imagine the emotion. I know it's a cartoon, but I can only imagine the emotion that was going through him, and just like in disbelief. And man, so they bring all their fight all the way to the city, and there's this one scene that is really, it's intense, it's gruesome, but it's very well done. He's basically telling Mark the entire fight, like, you shouldn't care about these people. You're wasting your time. You're going to live for 500 years. You're going to outlive everybody you know and love. Stop hanging on to them. Stop investing your time in them. And he literally grabs Mark by the head, brings him down to the subway and just puts his head in front of the oncoming subway, and the subway just goes right through all of them, and they are basically going through him through the subway, but I mean the subway is just like being destroyed all around them, and every body they hit, it just bursts into blood and guts and everything, and it's a very intense scene. It's well drawn, obviously, but it's I keep wanting to say choreographed, but it's approached well. Like it's one of those things you have to see because it's just they do a great job with it. Now we do get a Man of Steel moment when they take to the sky and where that scene where Superman's punching Zod in the sky, and there was one scene that reminded me of that, and they do end up fighting in the sky for a while and everything. It's constant fighting between Mark and his dad, and that's what so makes it so intense the entire time. And then they kind of go back to the Guardians as well while they go back to the fight between him and his dad, and it's kind of like you're into the fight, and all of a sudden, go into the Guardians, and you're like, can we get back to that, please? And man, his dad really is just like, I don't know if he's trying to make him mad or if he's just like spitting out truth or something, but he's like, okay, you don't want to join me? I'll just create another one. Wham, wham, and he's got Mark inside, like not inside, but against this mountain, and he is just punching the living daylights out of him. I'm like, that's your son, dude. Now, while this part is actually happening, there's a nice little, well, I'd say a glimmer of hope for Omni-Man in a way, because while he's punching Mark, he actually gets a vision or flashback, memory, if you will, when Mark was a kid, and he kind of remembers Mark as a kid playing baseball, and his mom actually saying like, oh, this is what humanity is all about. And his mom is just kind of explaining very briefly about what Earth is like and what humanity is like in general, because he's like, why am I wasting my time watching this baseball game, and where I could be saving this or doing that? I feel like I can be doing so much more. And he gets a lesson in the ways of humanity, and it was kind of a nice scene because whether it was real at that moment, they make you think it is at least. Mark and his dad have a nice father-son moment. It's a nice connection, and it shows that he's thinking about that scene, and that after that you just see him like rearing back to finish Mark off, and he just stops and he collapses right next to Mark like, wow, either I can't believe I didn't kill him, or I can't believe I did what I just did. And it's just one of those moments. It's like, wow, what did we just watch? I mean, that was brutal. I mean, Invincible looked like Glenn after he got beaten by Negan. I mean, if you've seen Walking Dead, you know what I'm talking about. But that's kind of what he looked like. Now, after this, he actually has a short conversation with Mark, from what's left of Mark, and this is where the emotions got me. Good Lord. And from my understanding, it's straight from the comic book. He's like, what will you have after 500 years? Like considering they live for a very long time. And he does mention in one scene that the older Viltrumites get, the younger, or the slower they age, the older they get. So he says, you'll be looking like you're in your 30s for 100 years or something like that. And he's like, in 500 years, what will you have? And, Mark can barely talk, but he says, I'll have you, Dad. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Holy crap, that was like the best thing you could say. That was better than any punch you would have landed against your dad. So Cecil and the rest of the gang, they manage to get Mark into the hospital and begin the recovery phase. He's out for like 2 days or something like that. And his mom goes to see him, and he's all bandaged up. And meanwhile, the Mauler twins are closing up shop. And as soon as they do, what do you know? They get arrested. Man, those guys can't catch a break, I swear. And while Mark is in recovery, the rest of the world is trying to move on from what happened with Omni-Man, and basically trying to wrap their head around it. Like, why would he do that? What caused him to do that? And is he the Omni-Man we always knew and loved? And just very, very confused, because he has never done anything to show that he would be capable of anything like that. A little later on, Mark is fully recovered, and considering he is invincible, and Cecil brings him home, and he starts looking at a whole bunch of pictures in their house, and he just goes through a flood of memories with his dad. You can hear like the voices of him and his dad in the background, and as he's looking at pictures, and it's just a nice little moment, but at the same time it's very heartbreaking, because it's like, it's not, you have all those memories, but it's like, was all that a lie? And it's just not the same anymore. And Mark's mom goes upstairs, and eventually he does go check on her, and he thinks she was asleep and everything, and she's just crying in her bed, and he leaves her alone. But it's just like, it's like, man, I just couldn't imagine going through something like that. It's not long until Cecil calls up Mark, and he's like, look, I know you don't want to do this, but we do have something approaching Earth really fast, and we need you to intercept it. And he's like, oh, fine, I guess I'll do it. He's actually at a restaurant with his friends, and when that happens, so he takes off, and what do you know? It's Alan the alien. You go from an intense fight with your dad and all these emotions with this episode, and then you gotta have Seth Rogen as an alien, of course. So Mark fills Alan in on everything that's happening, and he didn't realize that Mark was a Viltrumite, or I don't believe his dad was a Viltrumite. And he was just like, whoa, okay, holy crap, I didn't know all this. And he kind of tells Mark some of the things that Mark didn't know about Viltrumites, like, oh, they never leave their post, and all of a sudden this Viltrumite is over here. So it was a nice little back and forth of information. But right after this, you get a montage of basically all the supervillains that were in the show from the start. And you kind of see like where they are now. That robotic army is being built by that Doctor Doom ripoff. The Mauler twins, you see them going to jail. And you see a few the other villains, just basically what they're up to, and it's kind of like, oh, where are we going from here? And I think Alan asked him, like, what are you going to do now? And that's when they show the montage, and then after the whole montage is over, he's like, finish high school, I guess. I thought that was just a very teen way to answer something after everything he's just been through. So the show kind of left off with a little bit of a, not really a cliffhanger. I guess you could say the only cliffhanger was Omni-Man disappearing, and you didn't really know exactly where he went or what he's doing. But you did see a snippet of the aliens of the planet that he actually went to and like basically destroyed them, and they were like the Flaxans, and they were like, oh, he is enemy number one. So I don't know if they're going to come back and invade, or if he's going to show up on their planet again. I don't know, but I'm kind of interested to see where they go with that. But yeah, it's kind of where it leaves off, and not necessarily a cliffhanger, but not necessarily a cap on the season 1 either. It definitely leaves it open for more, and it just got renewed for season 2 and 3, so I'm really, really excited about that. I love this show. I thought it was great. The first season was fantastic. A great way to start. A great first season, actually. Each episode was great. I never felt like there was a filler episode. No episode really felt boring to me. Great characters in it, great character development. I cannot express how much I love the cast in this show. All around, it's a really, really great show. I would recommend it to anyone. That about does it for me, guys. Make sure to leave a comment and let me know what you thought about the first season of Invincible. Again, as always, let me know your knowledge of the show, of the comic book, and fill me in on anything I might have missed, and just let me know what you thought about it. I thought it was great. And while you're there, don't forget to, well, you know what to do. As always, I am Clint the Knickknack, and I will see you on the next one.